You have been told for most of your adult life that the gym is where health happens. You have heard it from doctors, from television, from well-meaning children who buy you memberships as birthday gifts. 45 minutes, 3 times a week, resistance training, cardio, the whole apparatus. And yet, in a cluster of mountain villages in the interior of Sardinia, men are reaching 100 years old at a rate 10 times higher than anywhere in the United States. Not women only, men. Everywhere else on Earth, women outlive men by 4 or 5 to 1. In Nuoro province, it is 1 to 1. Men and women aging at the same extraordinary pace, retaining bone, retaining muscle, retaining clarity. Not one of them owns a gym membership. Not one of them has ever done a structured workout. There is a reason this is happening, and it has almost nothing to do with what you have been told to do. I have been reading the research on this for some time now. What I am going to show you today will not ask you to buy anything, join anything, or change everything at once. It will ask you to look at something you already do, walking, and understand why it is the most powerful longevity practice your body has access to after 60. And I am going to tell you the one thing that the gym cannot give you, no matter how long you stay. In a moment, I will show you the biological reason why an hour of hard exercise cannot undo 10 hours of sitting. But first, let me tell you about a man named Antonio Todda. Antonio Todd was born in Tiana, Sardinia in 1889. He spent his entire working life as a shepherd, walking miles of steep, stony mountain terrain every single day. When he died in 2002, he was 112 years old, the oldest documented man alive at the time, certified by Guinness World Records. When researchers asked him his secret, he said, "Love your brother and drink a good glass of red wine every day." He was not joking, and he was not being modest. He was describing with complete accuracy the two things his life actually contained: constant low-intensity movement across inclined terrain, and one small glass of Cannonau wine taken with food every evening. The researchers who studied Antonio and his neighbors in Nuoro were Dr. Gianni Pes of the University of Sassari and Dr. Michel Poulain. Their study, published in Experimental Gerontology in 2004, was the paper that gave us the term Blue Zone, because they literally drew a circle on a map in blue marker around the villages where extreme longevity was concentrated. What they found inside that circle was not a genetic anomaly, it was a lifestyle. And when younger generations adopted cars and sedentary jobs and left the old ways behind, the longevity rates shifted with them. The life was what was keeping them alive, not the genes. Here is what that life actually looked like at the cellular level. Dr. James Levine at the Mayo Clinic spent years studying something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis, NEAT they call it. This is all the energy your body expends when you are not formally exercising. Walking to the kitchen, going upstairs, working in a garden, tending animals across a hillside. His research, reviewed in the Journal of Exercise Nutrition and Biochemistry, showed that NEAT can account for up to 2,000 calories of difference per day between two people who eat the same food. Not from the gym, from simply not sitting. The reason comes down to a single enzyme, Lipoprotein Lipase, or LPL. It lives in the capillaries of your muscle tissue and acts like a vacuum, drawing triglycerides, fats circulating in your blood, into the muscle to be burned as fuel. When you move, LPL is active. When you sit, LPL shuts down, not gradually, by up to 90%. This is why the Sardinian shepherds had clean blood and clear arteries at 80 and 90 years old. Not because they exercised hard, because they never fully stopped moving. LPL never had a reason to close. Think about your own day right now. How long has it been since you last stood up? That is what this is about. Now here is the part that surprises most people when I tell them. Dr. Mark Hamilton at the University of Missouri published research in the journal Diabetes in 2007, showing that 1 hour of vigorous exercise cannot compensate for the metabolic suppression caused by sitting for the remaining 10 or more hours of the day. 1 hour is not enough to keep LPL open. It is not enough to offset the systemic inflammation that builds when you are stationary for long stretches. You go to the gym, you feel righteous, and then you sit in a car, sit at a desk, sit on a sofa, and your body quietly returns to the same suppressed state it was in before. The Sardinian shepherds did not do 1 hour of hard movement. They did 5 to 7 hours of easy movement, continuous, across terrain with a natural incline. And that gradient mattered. Walking uphill places a gentle mechanical load on the bones and large muscle groups of the legs that preserves density and strength without the joint stress of weighted exercise. You do not need hills to make this work. You need to stop waiting until you have time to exercise and start moving more of the hours you already have. The second part of the Sardinian system is the one that the supplement industry has spent $50 million a year trying to sell you in the wrong form, Cannonau wine. It is a local variety of Grenache grape, fermented longer than most commercial wines, with the skins left in contact. That extended skin contact extracts something called procyanidins, a class of polyphenol flavonoids that bind directly to the inner lining of your blood vessels and stimulate the production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide relaxes and widens blood vessels, drops blood pressure, and prevents arterial plaque from adhering to the vessel walls. The dose the Sardinians drink is small, 3 to 4 ounces once or twice daily, always with food, specifically food containing fat and fiber. Pecorino sheep's cheese, sourdough bread, olive oil. The fat matrix slows the absorption of alcohol and mitigates the liver load. The fiber slows blood sugar. The procyanidins do their work on the vessels. The supplement industry looked at this data and extracted one compound, resveratrol, and put it in capsules, $50 million in annual sales. And in 2014, the INCIANTI study, led by Dr. Richard Sember of Johns Hopkins University and published in JAMA Internal Medicine, followed 783 men and women over 65 and measured their resveratrol levels against outcomes. The conclusion was clear. Resveratrol levels from either food or supplements had no substantial effect on inflammation, cardiovascular disease, cancer, or longevity. The compound alone did nothing. The compound inside the food matrix, consumed in the way Sardinians have consumed it for generations, produced extraordinary arteries. This is the difference between eating a food and isolating its parts. The Sardinians did not know they were taking procyanidins. They were having dinner. If Cannonau is not available near you, look for Tannat or Cabernet Sauvignon. Both are thick-skinned varieties with higher procyanidin content than most commercial reds. Cella and Mosca is one imported Cannonau you can find at specialty shops for $15 to $25 a bottle. I told you I was saving something. Here it is. There is a third practice embedded in Sardinian life that no supplement can touch and no gym can replicate. They call it la passeggiata, the evening stroll. After the heat of the day, the village walks together, not to burn calories, not as exercise, simply because that is what the evening is for. What this does physiologically is activate the parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve, the branch of the nervous system responsible for rest and repair. Walking outdoors in evening light with people you know beside you physically lowers cortisol, and this matters more than most people realize. Chronically elevated evening cortisol, the stress hormone, does two things that are catastrophic for the body after 60. It blocks melatonin production, which means you sleep poorly, and it drives insulin resistance overnight, which means your blood sugar management deteriorates during the hours when your body is supposed to be repairing tissue. The Sardinian passeggiata solves both problems simultaneously, not through discipline, through community. We walk alone on treadmills in bright, sterile gyms with headphones on, staring at screens. They walk together in the evening air, talking, slowing down together. We take melatonin supplements to fix the sleep we have disrupted by sitting in artificial light all evening. They simply walk outside when the sun begins to drop. We manage cortisol with breathing apps. They manage it with company. There are three things the Sardinian data points to, and they form one system. The first is constant low-level movement throughout the day, not a single concentrated burst, but accumulated hours, broken up on terrain with a slight gradient when possible. Your goal is 90 to 120 total minutes of movement distributed across the day, with no sitting stretch longer than 30 minutes. Gardening counts, stairs count, walking to the shop counts. The second is a small glass of a thick-skinned red wine, 3 to 4 ounces, taken with the evening meal and always in the company of food containing fat and fiber. Not a drink before dinner, not 2 glasses on an empty stomach. The preparation and the pairing are part of the medicine. The third is the walk you take in the evening, not for fitness, but for settling. Outside, preferably with someone, slow enough to talk. If you want to measure whether this is working after 90 days, ask your doctor for 2 specific blood markers, triglycerides, to see whether lipoprotein lipase is clearing fat from the blood, and HSCRP, high sensitivity C-reactive protein, to measure whether systemic inflammation is declining. These are the numbers that moved in Sardinia. These are the numbers worth watching. The honest timeline is this. In the first week, nothing dramatic. Your legs may feel more used by day 3 if you are walking more than you were. In the second week, your sleep may begin to shift, particularly if the evening walk becomes real. At 30 days, energy in the afternoon is often the first noticeable change. At 90 days, the blood markers will tell you what is actually happening inside the vessels. Antonio Todde walked those hills until his body simply could not anymore. He did not think of it as exercise, he thought of it as his life. That is the thing most of us got wrong. We separated movement from living and put it in a building with a membership fee. The Sardinians never did that. For them, the walk was the day. The evening stroll was the end of it. The wine was dinner, one thing for today. Not a new habit, not a system, not a plan. This. The next time you would normally sit down after a meal, walk instead. 10 minutes, outside if you can manage it. Slow enough that it does not feel like exercise. That is the passeggiata. That is the beginning. If you have tried to build more movement into your day and struggled to make it stick, leave a comment and tell me what got in the way. I read them and the answers shape what I write next.